And hello and welcome to another Xterra video where I work on my truck. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not. And on today's video I'm gonna try to do some more modifications to my truck, and hopefully I don't fail at it and hopefully nothing breaks. Now what I'm planning to do, I'm planning to somewhat modify, reinforce my lower control arms. As some of you may know, whenever you do a Titan swap and you're using the Titan lower control arms, you have an issue. CV axle rubbing on the shocks. I'm gonna post some pictures, and what happens as you turn, as you drive, the axle, whenever it's flexing, the bottom portion of the shocks, it hits the axle, so you have that banging noise, that clanking noise, and of course it damages the axle and the shocks. Now there's multiple ways to fix it. Of course the best way, it's the most expensive way, is to buy the aftermarket lower control arms by Dirt Kings. I'm gonna leave a picture over here somewhere, but they are so expensive, it's just way out of my budget. Maybe if I save for, I don't know, some time, or I win lottery, maybe I'll get them, but I still want to do something about this, so I had an idea. It was to get two low control arms and modify them. Now I know people may say that this may fail within time and this will fail within time, that you'll have to replace it, but I had my lower control arms for about 2 to 3 years and they still seems to be fine. And to replace these parts, it's only about like $80, so that's not a big of a deal. I mean, yes, you have to disassemble the lower control arm, you have to remove it, you have to change it, then put everything back together, and you gotta go and get the alignment. So but if it's something to do like once in 4 or 5 years, I don't think that's big of a deal. But anyways, this is what I'm planning to do. This is what I'm planning to work on. I'm planning to modify this, cut this off and move this over, reinforce this. Of course I have two of them, but I'm just showing you on one, guys. So my plan is to cut this out and move this over and weld everything back together, and hopefully it's not gonna break on me. That's the important part, because lower control arms, they the ones that take most of the shock, all the force of the suspension of a tire hitting the ground and rocks. So hopefully whatever I do, it's not gonna come back and bite me in the rear. Maybe the best thing is, the easiest thing is to just buy aftermarket control arms. There is also ones by CJDs. They are slightly cheaper but in a slightly different design, but I think I can make something work. So now I'm gonna start cutting this out and gonna start fabricating and making some templates and some plans as to what I can do about this, how I can modify it, and what's gonna be the outcome. Now I may run into issue by removing those bolts, that they're gonna be seized in there and I'm not gonna be able to remove those, the camber bolts, but we'll see. Hopefully they will come out without too much of an issue. Okay guys, so this is what I have to deal with. So what is my plan, if I have any? So my plan is to somehow carefully cut this whole thing out. I'm gonna weld another piece over here of metal to extend this over, maybe somewhere like up to here, reinforce it somehow. It over here is more metal, and this bracket, move it over about between ½ inch to 1 inch this way, so the CV axle over here is not going to be rubbing on the shock, and then weld it all back. And at the same time I'm probably gonna reinforce this as well, probably gonna weld in the washers over here just the way I did before, but this way it's gonna be hopefully easier for me, because this is not gonna be the way. So as you can see how this is being held over here, so I'm just gonna cut this completely, cut this out. I have to grind these welds out. This weld over here is gonna be the hardest one to cut, but we'll see. So hopefully it's all gonna work out. Gonna start looking into what I'm gonna do over here, how I'm gonna cut this, and at the same time I gotta measure where is this exactly sitting at, so I can put it somewhat the same way but just slightly over. So now I'm trying to take my measurements, what is the distance from here to over here, I know this is might not be the most scientific way to do this, but as long as I reuse the same stuff later, should be alright. And what I'm noticing that this bracket is actually mounted at slight angle like that, so there is more distance over here than here. So I'm gonna write those numbers down. So basically over here I have almost 8 inches and 1/8, and over here I have 8 inches and 1/4 basically. So that's, I'm gonna write over here, so that way later when I move it over I know at what distance I have to go this way. Now I'm just gonna measure the distance over here, so later I can see how much I can move it, either 1/2 inch or inch that way. And over here I'm gonna measure this side, which I have a 3 inch and 3/4. So I'll know that I'll have to move it about maybe up to here. That should be to make it 4 inches and a half. I think that should give me more than enough clearance away from the CV axle. Somewhat of my measurements over here. I know it doesn't look as pretty or anything, but this is just for my reference for later, so I know where exactly this was, more or less. Okay, so now I'm debating, trying to figure out what is the best way for me to make this over here to extend it over. I have two options. I can either try to extend this all completely here, meaning go flat with the lower part, somewhat trace it over here, cut it, weld another standing flat piece over here, and then another piece over here. So basically box it all in and extend it that way. Or I can also cut this at the angle, lifting this up like that, weld it on both sides, of course, trace it where it has to be, and then the top piece basically gonna meet like that. Of course, it's gonna be cut. That way it's only two pieces welded, and this piece gonna be overlapping on this one on top. Basically what I'm thinking, it's like a design of the wall shelf. So basically this is a wall, this is a shelf, and then you have a bracket over here, right? And then you have a support in the middle. So with the force going down, this bracket gonna be constantly pushing on this, and technically it shouldn't bend or anything. Whereas if this is to be just boxed like this, if this with enough force pushing that way, this potentially might give in. I don't know, I'm still thinking about this, so maybe I need to do a little bit more research. Alright, so now I'm gonna be working on cutting all these welds out. As you can see, I already started to cut this. Now I have to cut all of this around so I can remove this and reuse this later. Now to make my life easier over here, to have more space and not to damage this little bump stop, I just removed it. It's a 30mm long socket. I just unbolted it from the other side, and now I can set this from the side. Alright, after cutting it around and a little bit of a struggle trying to break this off, finally broke it off. So yeah, it's out. So now I'm gonna clean this surface, make it smooth. Probably gonna clean this out as well to make them flush, because that's as far as I'm probably gonna go with the metal plate. And then of course I still gotta work with this. I'll have to fix it to make it even, so that lower lip has to be cut again. Now I'm also I'm cutting out the front stabilization bar mount. We don't need this over here, it's gonna be in my way as well. Now I'm just gonna try to grind this off so I have more access to weld it over here. But this side, this bracket, I'm actually gonna leave it. That's where the new piece is gonna get welded. Okay guys, slowly I'm making a progress. I cut all of this out. I cut this out as well. So this is somewhat like a template, but it's not really accurate size yet. I need to do some still adjustments here. But basically how it's gonna be, this is gonna be something like that. As you can see, I have space over there, but that can be either filled up or I have to still adjust this. Then the other piece is gonna be on top over here. It's gonna be like at least 2 inches in. There's no need really to go all the way in there. I don't think so. But basically this is gonna be like this. and like this. And I think that's gonna be pretty good. Once all of this welded, I gotta reposition, find exactly where this has to be. Originally that was somewhere over here, but gonna be moved this way. And yeah, I think that's gonna be pretty good like that. So now I'm gonna continue working on this lower template. This is the hardest one for me to make so far. This one is pretty much done. That's pretty much how it's gonna be. And then I'm gonna start cleaning up the paint, prepare this, and start preparing this to be welded. But still I have to cut it, all that metal from this 316 plate. Okay guys, so the top plate is cut, and so like I said a million times, that's gonna be welded somewhere over here. So now I can trace this one out to the metal, cut it, so this can be welded something like that. Alright guys, so both plates are done pretty much. The bottom one, or should I say the side one over here, I still may have to do some small adjustments to take off something somewhere. I apologize about all the noise. It's everybody's doing the construction today. Anyways, but once this is all lined up and this is gonna be like that, welded, I think it's gonna be very solid and stable. Now this hole over here, I still may have to look into how I'm gonna fill this up, weld a little piece over here or something to cover this up, otherwise the dirt's gonna be going in there, unless I make a couple of holes over here as a drainage. Could be also an option, maybe not, we'll see. But other than that, I think this is coming out not too bad. Once it's all welded, then I can position this piece over here and weld it in place as well. Nice. Now also to reinforce this part over here where this is going to be mounted, and as you can see it's going to be slightly out more, so it's going to be more over here. So what I'm planning to do, I'm actually going to have to notch this out, and I'm going to add a piece of metal like that, so it's going to be cut something like that as well, and it's going to be welded from the inside here and here to the top first before I close it up with this piece. So that should give me more support from over here, from the shock. I mean, as it is, this already 316-inch steel, so this is pretty beefy as it is, but just to be on the safer side, I think that's what I'm gonna do. That's where I'm gonna, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Now also last year I worked on reinforcing this with washers. As you can see, one of the side from the factory already has kind of elongated hole, which is not good, but I have these 4 washers saved up. I think they're from camber balls from before, and they're pretty thick, and I think they're grade 9 or something, and they fit there perfect. So this time around I'm actually gonna weld these 4 washers on each side here and here whenever I work with this part. Alright guys, so for one low control arm, I think I have all the parts cut out. So this is gonna be my top, this is gonna be cut over here, this is gonna get welded over there, and then I'm gonna align all of this and weld this all the way around. This one is done. Now I'm gonna trace this out on the rudder to make one more set for a second lower control arm. And yeah, it's gonna take me some time to cut it all out, but hey, this is what it is. But this is pretty much the remaining of all the metal that I have left from a couple of years ago when I bought it to make my skid plates, and what a great investment it was. Not only I made all my skid plates out of that, I made my rear bumper with the help of a friend. I made my rear differential skid plate and a few for my friends, and some little projects here and there. I'm so glad I bought it back then. I used up so many projects, so many parts. But anyways, now I'm gonna just spend a few hours cutting this all out. I have to cut all of this out, prepare this one as well, and then I'm gonna measure it a couple of more times and time to weld it. Okay, so now I'm working on the lower mounting shocks and reinforcing these holes, because right out of the factory one hole is okay, but the other hole is slightly rounded up, so, and that might create some issues in the future. So I'm gonna weld this with thick washers, just like so, and yeah. And okay, I think everything is pretty much ready to start welding. I'm just doing my final measurements, my final check, but basically this is how this plate is gonna be, and then this one gonna be on the bottom. So this plate is gonna be welded from both sides. From the top over here, I'm gonna weld all of this around. I'm gonna weld over here inside as well. On top of that, right here, I'm gonna weld this like a little bridge support over here, because somewhere over here, that's where the shock mount's gonna be. I mean, it's still halfway on the original shock, but just to give it a little bit more extra support. So this is gonna be welded here and here. And then to close everything up, I'm gonna weld this plate like so, something like that. So this is gonna be supporting this top plate, is gonna be welded here, here, all the way around. And then I have this little hole over here, which I'm gonna have to fill it up with I'm probably gonna have to put a little piece of metal over here to weld it up. But yeah, I think that's coming out all not too bad. Alright, so inside everything over here is welded in. Over here I try to do it very slow so I don't burn the boot. Hopefully nothing happened to it. But everything is kind of hot here. So this is welded, this is all welded, and everything is welded over here. I'm gonna grind it off a little bit, but not a whole lot. I'm gonna leave everything there. The more weld there is, the better. I mean, this is not the prettiest weld by any means, but this should hold pretty good. So now I can start cleaning this all up and the inside over here, and then I can start trying to weld this plate in like that, like this, and yeah, everything is coming out all right, I think. Now I do try to take my time and weld it slow, so not too much heat getting over here and over here. This I covered so nothing gets in there from all these sparks and everything. I mean, the metal does get hot, but hopefully nothing, no rubber in there, and then they're gonna get damaged, so taking it very slow. Of course, I welded the reinforcement over here, so this is welded on both sides, outside and inside, plus this piece welded here. So I honestly don't think this will go anywhere. So now I'm gonna, well, not now, tomorrow I'm gonna work on the next control arm, weld it all up as well like this, and then I'm gonna work on measuring from here and here where I have to weld these shock mounts. And other than that, then it's gonna be cleaning and painting. I mean, the welds may be not the prettiest as always, but I think it will hold. That's the important part. It's not gonna go anywhere. It welded all up everywhere. I think this should be pretty good. I think it's come out pretty good.
The next day.
Okay, so this is coming out pretty good. I'm taking my brakes so I don't overheat the metal where the bushings are. So while this is cooling off, I can work on this one as well, and I can start measuring where exactly I'm gonna put the shock mount, how far I have to move it over, and what I'm thinking to move it about 3/4 of an inch out, more or less. That should be give me enough space not to interfere with the CV axle, and same time not to interfere with the steering. So if I look over here, I cannot even stick my finger in there between the CV axle and the shock mount. That's where it's hitting. So this is gonna be moved forward more, about 3/4 of an inch, but that at that time I'm gonna swing this bolt around. Actually, this is gonna be facing that way, and I still gonna have plenty of space over here, so it should not interfere over here. Maybe I'm not gonna go 3/8, maybe I'm gonna go just a 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch should create enough space in there, but at the same time it's not gonna interfere over here, because if I go in right now, I have over an inch of a clearance over here, so I don't really want to go too close to here, so probably I'm gonna move just a 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch should be good enough. All right, so now it's time to start welding the shock mount. So what I did, I moved it 1/2 inch out from the shock side, more towards the steering, towards the front. Hopefully that's gonna be good enough. It should clear out completely the shock, interfering from the CV axle, and at the same time it should not interfere with the steering links. So I think that should be good. So now I'm gonna tack it in, put a couple of tags in there, and then weld all the way around, maybe a couple of times.
A few moments later.
All right, guys, so the shock mount is mounted. It's welded. I think this weld should be good enough. I mean, it welded all the way around, so I think it should be good enough. I don't think it's gonna break. It shouldn't, hopefully not. Now on each control arm, the way I did this, I ended up with this hole over here, pretty big hole. So not to leave anything here exposed and the dirt water to go in, I'm gonna weld it in. I cut a piece of metal as well, so gonna be something like that, and just gonna weld this all around as well. And all right, and this is all welded up, all closed up. On the bottom over here, probably not the prettiest weld, but it's okay. All right, guys, it's all done. So now all it's left is just to paint it. So gonna paint it, multiple layers, let it dry, over and over, paint it, dry, and hopefully soon you guys gonna see the finished result. Okay, guys, as you can see, my lower control arms are all done, they're all painted. Do they look pretty? Probably not, but that's not important to me, pretty much. I think I welded all pretty good. Hopefully this is not gonna break off, but it shouldn't. I think the weld I made should be good enough there, I hope. So now I'm gonna take some time and just replace it, and gonna try to install the new ones, and hopefully they fit. Hopefully everything's gonna align, and we'll see how that works. So I'm gonna work on that, and then I guess, guys, I'm gonna show you if it worked or not.
Much later.
Alright, guys, so my new customized, not fully customized but slightly customized lower control arms are replaced, and I'm glad I did, because these ones are all shot. Over here there is no ring holding this in place, so this slides in and out, so all the grease just came out. I probably even thinking to cut this open maybe, but you can see it's all dry in there, and this makes a noise, and actually one of these was kind of halfway ripped, but the new ones are installed, and I think they look pretty beefy. They don't look too bad. So everything assembled. Of course I replaced my camber bolts as well for these ones, for this style, so that way they're not gonna move around, and I always know which position they are. Some of my friends are running the same setup, so I just copy what they have, and they seem to be having no issues with this. I also changed the position of this. This is supposed to be for my setup. I'm gonna keep an eye on it. How is the alignment? I may take it for alignment, just make sure everything is right. I just gotta find a better alignment shop. The one I've been going to is no good. So hopefully nothing is gonna break. Hopefully all my welds will hold in place, and I'm not gonna have any issues, but I'm not gonna know until I'm not gonna know, right? So I'm gonna keep you guys posted how is everything, and yeah, we'll see. So on this note, I hope you guys enjoy this video. I hope you might find it helpful, and as always, until next time, everybody, bye.